I'm Harrison Graham. Coming up in a few minutes, we got a Chicago Bears Now mailbag. So use the hashtag Bears you see on your screen, or you can super chat to get your questions on the show. Training camp ideas, free agent questions, trade ideas, preseason, fire away. But first, I did want to hit this little, I'll call it an idea from ESPN. Now, technically, it was like a 3-team trade idea, but the Bears end up with Rashad White in the trade, and that's what I wanted to focus on because obviously the Bears, there's been discussion all offseason about the potential of adding a running back, and Rashad White's a player we haven't talked about, and he's an interesting player because he's been fairly productive. His first 2 years, he wasn't the most efficient, but he did rack up some yards last year in more of a rotation role, was much more efficient. I think it was 4.2, 4.3 yards per carry where he was sub 4. His first 2 years, 10 career rushing touchdowns, over or close to right at 2,000, about 2,100 rushing yards there, it looks like. But also, he's pretty capable as a receiving back. I mean, he had a 550-yard season 2 years ago. Last year had almost 400 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns last year. From a creative play caller standpoint, Liam Cohen, obviously the Bears got Ben Johnson, so I think he's a guy in a rotation that can be pretty damn effective. And, you know, if the Bears don't get a clear number 2 to emerge, Rashad White could certainly handle that role. Seth Walder had this idea saying White is a useful player for Tampa Bay, but Bucky Irving took the starting job from him and is a strong receiver in his own right. With Sean Tucker also on the Bucs and White in the final year of his deal, the latter becomes a logical trade candidate. And what he's basically saying is Bucky's their starter. He's in year 2 of his rookie contract. Sean Tucker, I think, is in year 3 of his rookie contract. He emerged last year. While Rashad White's a good player and Tampa likes him and they might keep him, that's also a guy they could pivot off of if they think he's going to have a relatively small role, get a late-round pick for him, and move on. And listen, if I could get him for a 6th or a 7th or a late-round pick swap, like I'll give you a 6th, you give me a 7th back, I give you a 5th, you give me a 6th back for Rashad White, I'd be open to that. Now, again, like any other running back we've talked about, you have to say, okay, I know that this player is an upgrade over Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monangai, whoever, everyone except for D'Andre Swift or, you know, potentially D'Andre Swift. I think Swift's better than Rashad White, but, you know, if you were to bring him in, I think that's like, hey, this is our RB2. Rashad White's our 2, one of Roschon and Monangai's our 3, and we're probably moving off the other guy. That's probably what would be the approach here. But he's been productive. He was very efficient last year in Liam Cohen's scheme, and if Ben Johnson got him in here, I think he could be pretty good. He's about 210 pounds, ran a 4.48 in the combine, so he's got some juice, can catch the ball, can run inside and outside the tackles. So, yeah, I've always liked his game. You know, I think Tampa realized over time he's not like a true lead back, but in a rotation, in a committee, he can be pretty damn effective, especially as a number 2. So definitely not against the idea of bringing a guy like Rashad White on board. Would you trade a late-round pick for Rashad White? Type Y for yes or type N for no. If I don't feel great about Monangai or Roschon Johnson and him became available, I'd be open to it. I wouldn't do it right now. I'd want to see how the rest of camp and preseason plays out because there have been some early positive signs from these running backs, but I do think he's a name worth keeping an eye on here. All right, we'll take your questions now. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat. Might Nintendo Master, will Jones be traded by the deadline? I assume you're talking about Braxton Jones. I think the only way Braxton Jones gets traded is if 2 things happen. 1, obviously he doesn't win the starting job, Karan Amagaji or Ozzie Trapillo does. 2, the other guy in the left tackle competition, whether it's Karan, who also didn't win the job, or Ozzie, if Karan did win the job, whoever, you feel good about him as the swing tackle. Because even if Braxton doesn't win the job, we've seen him play and play fairly well. You're talking about probably the best swing tackle in the league if he doesn't make this team or if he doesn't start. So there's still value in that. And then the second reason would be to consider a trade is, do you get at least a 5th-round pick from him? Because if you let him walk in free agency, I think a team would sign him probably to be their starter. You could kind of play the comp pick formula game. So if you're not getting at least a 5th, it's like, well, if it's only a 6th or a 7th, I'd rather just keep him on this team this year just in case there's an injury or the guy who wins the job struggles. You could put him in there, good insurance, and then you play the comp pick formula game next off season. So I think it's unlikely. I do think there's a world where it happens either before week 1 or at the deadline. But right now, I don't see that scenario necessarily popping up. Now, if some team offers you a 4th and he's not your starter, it's like it's kind of hard to turn down if he's in a contract year and he's not your starter. So something to store in the back of the memory there. But I'll call it unlikely. On the Smokin' J rumor meter, I'll give it 1 Smokin' J. Robert D. What 2 pieces of players do they need to make them legitimate playoff team? What 2 pieces of players? I'm just going to simplify this. I think they have enough to be a playoff team if Caleb ascends enough. I think to be like a major contender, I still think you're probably a pass rusher away, and I am curious to see how that cornerback situation plays out. Obviously, first on the pass rush standpoint, like, do you get enough out of Dio Adingbo? The returns in camp so far have been kind of just Montez Sweat, we'll see if he bounces back in a major way. You got, just some guys after them, Tano Passanio, who they signed, Austin Booker, Dom Robb, Daniel Hardy. So be nice if a couple of those guys could contribute, but certainly could still use another piece there. And then at corner, who wins that CB2 job, and does that guy hold it down? I still am a believer in Tyreek Stevenson and his skill set, but he's battling with Nashawn Wright. He's battling with Terrell Smith. May the best man win. So those are a couple spots. Obviously, can this be a consistent running team? Schematically, I think Ben Johnson will call some good schemes and plays to run the football effectively. This is a good offensive line on paper, so I think they'll be okay there, but that could be a position they need to add at as well. All right, take 1 second. Doesn't even take that long. Hit that subscribe button right now. It is free, daily Bears content. We don't charge a dime. Let's make it happen. Maxime Lukes. Didn't hear much about Ruben Hippolyte in a while. Are we good at linebacker? So today, and I probably should have mentioned this in just our quick hitters emptying the notebook, sounds like he had a good day today. It's a fair question, though, because I agree with you. We haven't heard his name a ton. Now, linebacker's kind of a position at camp that kind of gets glossed over because even when you're in pads, you're not always just full-blown tackling, lighting people up. Special teams conversations don't get reported that much on with a guy like Ruben Hippolyte, who's probably going to play on special teams a lot. So, fair question. I know, like, the first couple days of training camp, Noah Sewell was getting reps with the ones. I know Ruben's gotten some as well, so that continues to be a battle and a rotation. But I know they were really excited about him coming out of OTAs. I think he's a guy I like to watch in the preseason. Like, we just need to see him in some of these games. Ken Tom, where in the top 5 receivers in the NFL is Luther? He's top 5 and he ain't 2 through 4. If he ain't 2 through 5, you know what I'm saying. No. Look, it's a process. Today, if you're watching on Thursday's live show, he had an unbelievable day, made a bunch of plays, but it's early. Let's be excited, but let's not put him in the Hall of Fame just yet. But the talent is there. We knew that when they drafted him. We saw it today or on Thursday, whenever you're watching this. So, yeah, I'm very optimistic about what this guy could do. Will you watch Bears preseason games? Yes or no? Type 1 for yes, 2 for no. We'll be live for all of them, so I hope you join us and come hang out at least. So that is the plan here, but curious if you're a preseason watcher or not. Christian, I think all this Caleb Williams is the QB under the most pressure talk is a little insane. He is still a young QB going into year 2 and learning a new system. I more so mean from a media standpoint, if he struggles, it's going to be a talking point. If he balls out, it's going to be a talking point. He was the number 1 pick last year, had a lot of noise around him, a lot of crazy shit happened last year. This book from Seth Wickersham. There's just a lot going on. And the Bears, people feel like, have a lot of talent around him, and I agree. So he's under a lot of pressure. Now, if you're saying he's under so much pressure that there's a world where he's not the starter next season, I've said this repeatedly, it would have to be an absolute train wreck this year for him to not be the starter heading into 2026 as well. He would have to be embarrassingly bad, clearly worse than last year. So from that standpoint, yeah, like other guys are probably under more pressure, like Anthony Richardson. It's now or never, but I still think he is under a lot of pressure, at least publicly. Okay, Jaden, how concerned are you about Shamar Turner's injury status? I'm concerned in the sense of I don't have high expectations for him at this point for this year. I kind of view him as like anything he gives you is icing on the cake. But I'm not that concerned from like is it going to crush you from a team standpoint if he doesn't contribute much? I don't feel like that's the case because at best he entered camp as probably the fourth defensive tackle behind Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, and Andrew Billings. Dio Adengbo is going to kick inside some. Chris Williams had a decent year last year. Jonathan Ford's in the mix. You still have Zach Pickens. So I'm not panicking from that standpoint. But it's a bummer, right? Because, trenches players sometimes take a year anyway, and to miss all these practices and preseason games and camp, that's, he's going to be behind the eight ball. So hopefully he gets back sooner rather than later. If he somehow was back for that third preseason game, that would be great. That would probably be right on the border of when he could potentially play. But my guess is we don't see him in the preseason. And, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, early in the year, he's one of those guys who, even if he's healthy, he's inactive on game days because he's like the fifth defensive tackle. So that part of it's a bummer. Still think he has a chance to be a really good player long term, but in the short term in 2025, it could be kind of like a loose redshirt year. All right, thanks for all your questions. If you got more, you know where to find me. Social media, at HGramNFL, Twitter, Instagram, DMs, wide freaking open. So fire away if you have any questions, and we'll get those answered for you in a short manner.